Welcome to the Explainer. Listen, if you're tuning in right now, it means you're right in the thick of NAPLEX prep. You're a focused learner, your time is incredibly valuable, so we're going to make every single minute count today. Consider this your exam coach playbook. We are diving straight into the absolute highest yield formulas, those mandatory conversions you just have to know, and of course, the hidden traps that catch so many test takers completely off guard. But hey, before we start crunching the numbers, let's just take one slow breath in together. Go ahead, hold it for a brief pause, and let out a long exhale. Okay, now name one thing you're grateful for today. Seriously, reaching this stage of your preparation, it reflects some real discipline and growth. You should be super proud of the work you've already put in to get here. You've got the foundation built. Right now, we're just sharpening the blade. All right, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, high-yield biostats and pharmacokinetics. Second, clinical math and insulin. Third, drug dose conversions. And finally, common exam traps. Section 1, high-yield biostatistics and pharmacokinetics. Let's jump right in and front-load the heaviest math right now while your focus is sharpest. Okay, let's kick things off with relative risk, or RR. The formula is pretty straightforward. It's the risk in the treatment group divided by the risk in the control group. So in our example, a 12% treatment risk divided by a 20% control risk gives us an RR of 0.60. Remember the golden rule here. An RR of less than 1 favors the treatment. Now compare that to relative risk reduction, or RRR. This tells us how much the risk was actually reduced relative to the control group. You just take the difference between the control and treatment risk and divide it by the control risk. So here, that's 20 minus 12 divided by 20, which gives us a solid 40% relative risk reduction. And that naturally leads us to absolute risk reduction, or ARR, which is honestly just simple subtraction, control risk minus treatment risk. But why do we care so much about ARR? Well, because it unlocks one of the most frequently tested metrics on the board, the number needed to treat, or NNT. NNT is literally just 1 divided by your ARR, but and this is key, the ARR must be expressed as a decimal. Now, listen up, because here is a massive trap you cannot afford to miss. When calculating NNT, you absolutely must always round up. Let's look at exactly how this plays out step by step so the math really clicks. Step 1, we find our ARR. 20% minus 12% equals 8%, which is 0.08 in decimal form. Simple enough. Step 2, we calculate NNT by dividing 1 by 0.08. which gives us exactly 12.5. Step 3 is where so many people lose easy points. You might be totally tempted to round conventionally, right? But for NNT, you can't treat half a patient. You have to treat a whole extra patient to actually see the clinical benefit. So 12.5 rounds up to 13 patients. Even if it was 12.1, you'd round up to 13. Now, this brilliantly illustrates the connection in pharmacokinetics between calculating bioavailability and determining the correct IV loading dose. Bioavailability, or F, helps us understand how much of a drug actually reaches systemic circulation compared to an IV dose. And this feeds directly into the loading dose formula, which is the desired concentration multiplied by the volume of distribution divided by F. If you're giving an IV loading dose, F is simply 1. So if you wanted a concentration of 15 milligrams per liter with a volume of distribution of 35 liters, you literally just multiply 15 by 35 to get a 525 milligram IV loading dose. Easy points. Section 2. Critical clinical math and insulin rules. Let's see how these concepts build into practical, everyday clinical rules you're going to use constantly. You absolutely have to know the Friedewald equation for calculating LDL. It's total cholesterol minus HDL minus your triglycerides divided by 5. But again, the test makers love to see if you're actually paying attention. Here's the massive trap. If the patient's triglycerides are strictly greater than 400 milligrams per deciliter, this equation becomes completely invalid. Stop right there. In clinical practice and on the exam, that's your immediate cue to just order a direct LDL. But if the triglycerides are under 400, here's your solved example. Say total cholesterol is 200, HDL is 50, and triglycerides are 150. You take that 150, divided by 5, which is 30. Subtract that 30 and the 50 HDL from the 200 total cholesterol, and you land precisely at an LDL of 120. Next up is mean arterial pressure, or MAP. The formula is 2 times the diastolic pressure plus the systolic pressure, all divided by 3. You might be wondering, why is diastolic multiplied by 2? Well, it's because the heart spends roughly twice as much time in the diastolic resting phase. Makes sense, right? So for a standard blood pressure of 120 over 80, it's 2 times 80, which is 160, plus 120, giving us 280. Divide that by 3, and your MAP is 93 millimeters of mercury. Okay, let's tackle insulin. For initiating a basal bolus regimen in type 1 diabetes, your starting total daily dose, or TDD, is roughly zero point 0.5 units per kilogram per day. The absolutely critical detail here is to use total body weight. Don't let them trick you with ideal body weight. Once you have that TDD, you typically split it right down the middle, 50% basal insulin and 50% rapid-acting insulin, with that rapid portion divided evenly among meals. Now, from that TDD, you calculate the rapid-acting insulin rules. Let's assume an 80-kilogram patient, which gives us a TDD of 40 units. Step 1 is the rule of 500 for the carb ratio. 500 divided by 40 is 12.5. What does that actually mean? It means 1 unit of rapid-acting insulin covers exactly 12.5 grams of carbohydrates for this patient. Step 2 is the rule of 1800 for the correction factor. 1800 divided by 40 is 45. This means 1 unit of rapid-acting insulin will drop their blood glucose by 45 points. Super practical stuff here. Moving on to Section 3, Essential Drug Dose Conversions. What's really interesting about this section is how memorizing a few core ratios right now will save you massive amounts of time on exam day. Trust me, you do not want to be deriving these from scratch while the clock is ticking. First up is the aminophylline to theophylline conversion. Just remember the handy mnemonic ATM. Aminophylline to theophylline multiply. Specifically, you multiply by 0.8. And since aminophylline is only about 80% theophylline, going the other way, from theophylline back to aminophylline, means you just divide by 0.8. All right, here's a frequent source of tricky board questions: the difference between the weight of a salt and its actual elemental content. Orders for calcium and iron are often written as the salt, but the questions will ask for the elemental amount. Calcium carbonate is 40% elemental calcium, so a big 1,250 milligram tablet actually only gives you 500 milligrams of calcium. Calcium citrate, that's only 21%. And ferrous sulfate is 20% elemental iron, meaning a standard 325 milligram tablet provides 65 milligrams of iron. You've got to memorize these percentages, for sure. Statin equivalencies are another must-know, so let's hit these quickly. The standard equivalency row, like pitavastatin 2 milligrams or suvastatin 5 milligrams, atorvastatin 10 milligrams, and simvastatin 20 milligrams, all sit firmly in the moderate intensity range, which lowers LDL by roughly 30 to 50%. High-intensity statins, the ones which drop LDL by 50% or more, include atorvastatin at 40 to 80 milligrams and rosuvastatin at 20 to 40 milligrams. Please do not fall into the trap of assuming every single drug has a convenient one-to-one IV to oral conversion. Look at metoprolol, for instance. The IV to PO ratio is 1 to 2.5, so 5 milligrams IV is actually equivalent to 12.5 milligrams orally. For levothyroxine, the IV dose is roughly 75% of the oral dose, or a 0.75 to 1 ratio. Keep those straight in your head. While most insulin products switch on a simple one-to-one basis, there is one major exception you absolutely must know. If you are switching a patient from NPH insulin given twice a day to glargine given once daily, you must reduce the total dose to 80%. So if a patient is on 20 units of NPH twice a day, which is 40 units total, you multiply that 40 by 0.8, meaning their new glargine dose is 32 units daily. Section 4, Common Exam Traps to Avoid. Knowing the math isn't enough, right? You have to be able to spot the traps specifically designed to test your attention to detail. Let's consolidate them. Okay, here is your ultimate rapid-fire trap checklist. 1. Did the question ask for the salt or the elemental weight? Convert if needed. 2. Are you switching routes? Remember, furosemide is 1 to 2 IV to PO, levothyroxine is 75%, and metoprolol is 1 to 2.5. 3. For number needed to treat, always use a decimal for ARR and literally always round your final patient count up. 4. Before you even think about calculating LDL, check those triglycerides. Over 400, stop. And 5, watch like a hawk for that NPH to glargine 80% reduction rule. Actually, you know what? I want to add one more trap that trips up almost everyone: phenytoin and albumin. Because phenytoin is highly protein-bound, a total measured phenytoin level might look suspiciously low, say 8 micrograms per milliliter. But if the patient's albumin is under 3.5, you have to use the correction formula. That's total phenytoin divided by 0.2 times albumin plus 0.1. So if that patient has an albumin of 2.0, that seemingly low level of 8 suddenly corrects to 16, which is actually highly therapeutic. Never, ever adjust a phenytoin dose without checking the albumin first. Let's close out with a quick active recall challenge. Your patient's blood glucose is 250. Their target is 100, and their correction factor is 45. What is the exact correction dose? Take a second and think about it. Okay, it's current blood glucose minus target divided by the correction factor. That's 250 minus 100, which is 150. Divide 150 by 45, and you get exactly 3.3. So in practice, you would administer roughly 3 units. Did you get it right? If so, awesome job. If not, hey, that's exactly why we do this. Keep practicing, keep analyzing those traps, and ask yourself, what other fundamental formulas are you blindly trusting today that could cost you your license tomorrow?